a number of B special huts that were used by the USC, the Ulster Special Constabulary, of which there were about almost 12,000 at the time, and they were in aid to the RUC. They'd been formed back at the beginning of the formation of the state of Northern Ireland, as they called it, and they were a terrible menace at the time to the Catholic population. Individually, they may have been nice people, but individually, they also would be neighbours of people, so they knew all the information, and they would stop people on the road, and they would ask them questions, and even though they knew all about them, and they were quite menacing because some of them stood with their guns turned on the car or whoever they were questioning. So in any event, as part of the Operation Harvest, which started in 1956, in December the 12th, 1956, which had started off with a lot of IRA activity throughout the 6 counties, and then the severe winter came, and then there was the Sean South and Fergal O'Hanlon casualties, Lord rest their souls, and then things kind of petered out a bit, and was left then, say, for the local people to organise and do something themselves. So we organised as part almost of without maybe following the strategic lines exactly, as part of the policy, the Operation Harvest document was discovered belonged to Sean Cronin in his apartment and was published in all the papers. And the Evening Press was a regular paper here in the evening time. In fact, they used to print the late news up on Devlin Road in the little column. My brother worked in it. I used to work in it during the summer as well. And so we knew if we hadn't been given the stuff by the strategy by the IRA chief of staff or his other commanding officers, we could read it in the newspapers. And one of them was to clear the area and make it difficult for the forces of the Crown to move around. So we thought one of the best ways of doing that was, let's put the fear of God in the B specials. And there were quite a number of B special huts, both in Tyrone and Fermanagh, that were blown up around this time. This would be the summer of 1957. And I suppose the truth is we probably overstretched ourselves a bit, because there was one blown up in Eskra. That was the headquarters of the B specials. And in the documents, when I was doing the research for my book, I found that it cost something like £1,200, and there was a financial man called from the Department of Finance to give evidence in order to make the defendants feel more guilty about the destruction they had caused. And you think of the figures now today. But as a result of that activity then, the RUC, they decided then that they would do a swoop. And they swooped on, they might have been watching movements, because we were fairly green as regard these things. But anyway, the activity was that in Berra, Eskra and Fintna and Skelga, those are 4 particular ones that our group of people would have been involved in. As a result of all that, we were all brought. We were all, us and more people. They arrested a lot of people. We were all arrested at the same time. Right. Might have been a day of a difference or 2 days of a difference. It was all within a couple of days. Am I right in saying that?
That would be right. But
I was a wee bit later.
The thing is, we're taken to different places, and you wouldn't have knew. I wouldn't have knew these boys around, or they wouldn't have knew guys. And remember that?
That's right.
Take us to different.
Paying you without any charge or any trial, until decided later on what to do with you, whether you're going to be charged or whether you're going to be interned.
So it was a very terrifying experience for people. And then you had these guys coming with all their expertise of interrogation and all that, and with the little bits of information that they had gathered either by watching us or whatever. And eventually, anyway, they brought us to, in my case, they brought me to Omagh Police Station, and just as Jim described, Omagh Police Station was just up the road from here, beside what was the Melville Hotel, which is just beside the courthouse. And Melville Hotel is now gone as well. Don't know what's there in this place now, but
It's Chinese restaurant.
So it's still a takeaway.
To be heard.
But the old cells are still there for us, isn't them?
Are they?
Below.
Are they?
They're down in the basement.
And these cells, just to tell you a bit about the cells were not a screed of daylight, not a bit of fresh air. They were usually kept for drunks and ne'er-do-wells, poor fellows found around the place.
Just dungeons.
And the dungeons is exactly the description.
It's taken from 5 mil time to Clark to and then, but I never seen anyone.
Did you not? Well, then maybe
So
maybe
then I
others.
was taken to the holding cells in Belfast.
I was taken to Clogher at the start, just only to Clogher, first, and then taken from that onto Crumlin Road. I think I was on my own altogether all the time. I were fingerprinted and
Fingerprinted and photographed. Yeah.
not at all. And you used your chamber pot at night, and then a warder and a couple of screws, a couple of prisoners came wheeling a big trolley with a container on it. You slopped
You called it slop out.
you called it the slop out. You emptied your chamber pot into the slop outs and wheeled it past the cells in the morning. That was our toilet facilities. The dining hall for breakfast and got a quarter of a loaf cut down that way, an unsliced loaf cut down, quarter of a loaf, and a little bit of the old time margarine, the wartime margarine.
Sitting on top of it.
That's on your bread, and a little container of what do you call aluminium container of porridge, and this bit of bread and the thing, and a cup
And
of
a
tea.
mug of tea and a half mug of milk.
Aye, for your porridge.
You slopped out the milk and the tea.
The porridge would have been prepared possibly the night before, for the skin on it was very
Yes,
heavy.
right,
You
They'd
could
have
take
taken
the
a
skin
spade
off.
to cut it off it.
You could take the skin off and put it on the table like
You
that.
could,
And you could then put any, if you happen to get an orange and put the orange peels in, you could wrap it all up.
You could.
And you wouldn't leave even the slightest
The
smear.
skin was so
Nothing.
thick on it.
But the only thing, Arthur, I can remember, I liked that porridge though. But the only thing I could
Well,
say.
you-
Aye, well, it's
Yeah.
The bread
Porridge
wasn't too
wasn't the
bad
worst
either,
part of
but
it.
you
There wasn't
needed,
enough of it, there wasn't
you
enough of
needed
it.
a chainsaw to cut.
So go you tell what happened after that. Now you had we had a breakfast in the dining hall together in
Aye.
A wing. We're now in the high security
Yeah.
wing in A wing,
Yeah.
and we were in A2, A1, A2, and A3.
This is after we're sentenced. now.
After we were sentenced to various terms of imprisonment, and you all went down. First of all, you stopped
First and foremost, we went, after we were sentenced, we were taken down to the governor, and he allocated what we were to do. He said I'd have to be a tailor, and I said, well, could I not be, work at boots or something? I did a little boot, half sole my shoes before. I could not. No. I said, no, you'll be a tailor, and I said, well, I couldn't do more so than the man in the moon. Right? I had to be a tailor anyway, and us three were tailors. Arthur was a
I was a
Arthur was a
shoemaker.
shoemaker.
But you do a little
Anyone
bit
that
of
got the
boasting.
longer terms, anyone that got longer terms were put to be tailors, and then the shorter terms would make it take you longer. But
Do a little bit of boasting now. What did you do just to jump a wee bit? What did you do when you came out? Tailoring.
I did a little bit of tailoring. I finished up before I left the prison. I could have made the uniform for the prison officers.
We brought down at 8 o'clock for the breakfast.
Aye.
At about up to 9 o'clock or about half 8, quarter, we were brought to the. We were out. Did we go out first of all for
We
the
had
hour's
workshop.
walk?
No, not
Not in the morning.
No. We didn't really have any walks, only during remand. We walked during
Yeah.
remand, but we only
We went to work.
when,
Then
once
we
we
went
were
to work
sentenced.
at half 8.
Yeah,
Then
when we were sentenced, then we worked from whatever 9 o'clock or whatever till
12 o'clock.
12 to the dinner
Did we
hour
not go
break.
out for a...
I had a bit of recreation.
I thought
there.
We went out for an hour.
I thought we were out for
We
an
were-
hour.
We went out for
Yes.
an hour,
Yes,
like
yes.
after breakfast.
After
Yes.
breakfast.
Yes, we
After
did.
breakfast,
We
we
did.
went
That's what I
out
thought
around
too,
that
no,
yard
yes.
for an hour.
That's right. And then we came in and
We
went
came
to
in and
the
went to the workshop then.
workshop.
Aye.
Then that's right. And you worked then until half 12 or
Yes.
so, 12 o'clock. Then
Tea
you were
break.
taken out and you're brought for lunch.
Yeah.
And the lunch was served in the dining hall. The dining hall held about 120 people, I would say, big tables and chairs. And again, the dinner was, we collected the dinner ourselves, self-service.
Mm.
And there's a
That's
warder too, and his trustees.
That was-
Given
that
out
was
the soup.
given out in little
Yeah.
containers
Dixies, they
again,
called them
little-
Dixies, remember that?
yeah.
Everything was run like the British Army did.
That is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Just the same
Little
as-
quarter Dixie
same as
for
our-
meat and veg, and then a bigger Dixie with the potatoes,
Yeah.
and then another Dixie like the vegetable one with custard and prunes made from water and pretty awful stuff, but we still ate it.
Mind the things they call the Ruscos or Russos.
They were nice. They were nice. They were only bread and jam dipped in batter, you know. But then go ahead. Then after dinner, lunchtime, we were locked up to give the warders their chance to have their meal. Do you remember that we were locked up for an
Then
hour?
we're locked up, yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So we only get about 20 minutes or half an hour for the dinner or the lunch. Even 20 minutes, I would say, if we were watching the time.
Yeah.
And then we were locked up for an hour, and then we were released back to the workshop for another 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And about 4:30 we came back, 5 o'clock, had our tea, and then you had recreation. Recreation was in the dining hall, and that stopped at 7 o'clock, in which we were your man.
Six till we were a year in.
Oh, you're right. Yes,
6 o'clock till
But
we were
I'd
a year
forgotten
in.
that, Jim. You're right. Yeah.
Because, but then
And then we got an extension.
in the
then
summertime we
yeah.
were out to
For
play
long
football,
service.
play football.
That's right.
In the summertime, yeah, but yes, but in the wintertime the recreation was in, and then in the summer months we were outside.
The old
That's right.
snooker table and darts.
That's right.
And table tennis.
And people chatted and sat around.
Played cards or
Played
We
cards.
Barney and he'll teach the Irish dancing.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Made him
In the
say
laundry.
the Cunningham one. We were eating the dinner and Cunningham, he was a smart fella. And
He was a smart
always
fella,
someone,
yes.
he says to someone to Barney, Barney says, there's a cat out there in the yard and I threw her a bit of that food and she's still licking her ass to take the bad taste of her mouth.
The airlock, because in more recent times the gates you came through would have slammed shut. The gates directly behind us slammed shut and you were locked in, and this is where all the security apparatus was. And as you can see, it's all been removed. It's all part of the renovation work, and I'll touch on that a wee bit later on. In earlier times it was known as the Gate Lodge. If you look just directly above your heads, just behind you, you'll see a wooden beam. That's where the original gates of the jail were before these new gates were put on. Now, whenever they started bringing prisoners into this jail in the latter part of the Victorian times, they began taking photographs around 1890. And what they would do is when they brought a prisoner into the jail, they made him hold his hands up like this. And it was very simply why. Because in those days, a lot of people tended to work on farms or in labouring jobs. So they would maybe get scars or bruises on their hands or their fingertips. So they made them hold their hands up and they photographed them. And what they would do is they set the prisoner on a chair, and using a mirror system, they would get the side views. Now you may think it's pretty basic stuff, and in a way it was, compared to what, let's say he's using in his digital camera. But normally on the tours, it won't be today. We have an exhibit hall. If you come back when it's open to the public from Easter onwards, and you get a chance to go into the exhibit area, look at some of those photographs. They're as good as anything you're going to get out of a digital camera. So in a way it was basic, but it was advanced for its time. And it was all done within an annex of rooms behind that door, and it started around 1890. So that's when prisoners actually began to be photographed for the first time, when they brought them in here. Okay? Now, as I say, this was the Gate Lodge, the Tally Lodge. That once you got through here, those gates slammed shut, that was it. You were under their control, everything behind you was left behind. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to walk a couple of feet. We'll stop here. I'll tell you a little bit about our next stop. Some of you are going to be very familiar with it, okay? Now, when internees were brought into this jail, they had political status automatically because they were internees. However, from 1972, at least up till 76, after the IRA hunger strike in the jail in 72, anybody coming into the jail for political offences were allowed to keep their own clothes. Anybody else was in the jail, they called them ODCs, ordinary decent criminals. And ODCs were equipped with uniforms which were kept in there. Doesn't matter who you were, what you were, when you were brought into this jail, you went through here. And it was a one-way ticket, right? And that's the shower area. Now, I had a woman on a tour with me one day, and she looked at these signs up on the wall, and she got a wee bit panicky. Because I told her this was a one-day ticket. Come on, it's not Auschwitz. Okay? Basically, as most of you might know, is you went down through the showers, you were given your own clothes back, you were issued with a prison uniform, you went down to the annex of D-Wing, and you were held on D-Wing. You were brought from D-Wing up onto the circle, and then onto the wings. So it's a one-way ticket. Okay, folks? Now, unfortunately, you won't be going through that way today because D-Wing's closed. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to bring you back out again. I'm going to bring you over through the archway, and I'm going to actually give you the history of the jail by looking at the walls. Now, by right, we only get an hour to do these tours. Normally, when we are doing them for the public, we do. When the jail was first built in the 1840s. The black brickwork along the top of the wing is an extension that was put on in 1890. If you look at the wall over on my right, you can nearly see the history of the jail. The white part would have been the height of the wall when the jail was first built. Now, in case you're wondering why they just didn't jump over and run, in those days you were kept in chains, so you were going nowhere. The next layer of brick was put on in 1890, the third layer at the turn of the 20th century, and those bricks in the tops what I told you 1970s architecture. Okay, folks, now A-Wing itself has a long history to it, dating right back to the suffragettes, Austin Stack's prison revolt in 1918 when the Republican prisoners held what was known as the Christmas Day Revolt, which we'll talk about later on, through till the 20s when the internees was in it, the 40s again when the internees was in it, when the IRA prisoners were in it in 1972, and finally when loyalists decided they would burn the roof of it during the campaign against segregation. We're going to discuss a wee bit more about that when we get inside. Okay?
What about the 50s?
Sorry, we're going to do that inside. All right. Don't you worry, I won't leave the 50s out. Okay, folks. Where you're actually standing was the visitors area for A-Wing. Now, this is the thing you've got to remember about a Victorian jail. Victorian jails were not built to turn you into a nice person. They weren't built to reform you, they were built to penalise you. That's all they were interested in, penalising you. They were working prisons. This building directly behind me is the old prison laundry. It actually dates back to the 1850s. Within that laundry there was a tailor's and a shoemender's shop. Prisoners had to work in this jail. It's as simple as that. And I had a young girl on a tour with me one day, she's about 14 or 15, and she says, well, mister, what about the PlayStations like they have in McCarroll? Where are they? You know, she came to me at the end of the tour and she says, look, I didn't even know what the word penal meant. Okay, so this is what Victorian prisons were all about. They were penal institutions. As I say, this would have been the visitors area for A-Wing. Now, it's gone, as you can see. What they're more or less doing, as Liam told you at the start, and he'll probably give you a wee bit more later on, they're more or less keeping the fabric of the Victorian jail. Okay, it's a Grade A listed building, can't be knocked down, and they're knocking all the modern stuff away. It's all been taken away. Now, that's their decision, they're the bosses. Personally, I think they're making a mistake, because in another generation, you know, the 70s or the 60s or the 50s is going to be history. You know, that's the way it goes. But that's why none of this is here. That would have been the bowling green. Now, the bowling green was used for sort of long-term prisoners in the jail. I don't know why a bowling green. Everybody I know plays football. They put a bowling green in. It's hard to imagine it was there, but so be it. Okay, folks. Don, you want to say a couple of words on that?
I've already got a photograph of you over that wall.
They've asked me to tell you a little story. It'll only take about 2 hours. No, seriously, just in a couple of quick sentences. First of all, I was jailed here for 10 years for being a member of the IRA. And I was imprisoned there. You see the 3 white drain pipes there? The very last of those. If you look there, I was up in the top, I was up in the penthouse suite, and just below me was John Kelly's cell. Now if you look at the bars, all the bars are circular, round bars, but on that particular cell of John Kelly's, on the second one, they're flat bars, because those are the bars we cut, and the ones that were replaced, interesting enough, are still there. So we used to exercise here. This wasn't a bowling green when we were here. It was a garden that you walked around. The football field was on the far side, as some of you will remember, Noel and David and the rest of them, on the far side. So we observed here that this was only a low wall at the time. And you had, at one stage in 1959, they had a review of the security. So they put out lights all around the place, and they increased the size of the wall to cut A-Wing off to make it more secure. And that gave us our path to freedom, because we come out, when we cut the bars in the cell, we crawled across here, and at that time that was open. You had the tunnel, that's the area into the tunnel, it was just wrought iron, and we climbed up, and there's the monument to me there. Look, see the two windows are blocked up. Because if you look at the window beside it, you see the way the bars are vertical and horizontal. Well, they were like a ladder for us. So we climbed up, and the beauty about this was that the gun tower over here on A-Wing was obscured by the tailor's shop, and the gun tower on D-Wing is obscured because we're in the blind side of the building. And having built that wall, they give us a run across. Now, we were up here, of course, they blocked these off a couple of days after I escaped, and our idea was a great plan. We had a 70-foot rope which we'd anchored to the bar, and the idea was to just get the anchor and go quickly across the wall and drop down the far side, taking whatever it is, 40 feet plus 30 feet or near enough to it. But unfortunately for us, the rope got caught here in the bar and the wrought iron of the tunnel, and by pulling it we were left to the weaker part of the rope. So I crawled across here, and there was down below I could see Mr. Beattie and Mr. McIver and the guys, and they used to be armed guards. That's the only time you ever saw prison warders armed, and they were below me. But the gravel was still on the wall after it had been built. So eventually, anyway, to make a long story short, myself and John, we had it all timed, planned, and everything else. But like a lot of good plans, they go wrong. But so with the rope, we went to the far end of and we decided that he would hold the rope and I would drop. And the rope broke, and I fell, and he fell in here into a little garden plot in here, and he fell, and I fell outside. Now that was St. Stephen's Day in 1960, and we were to go out on Christmas Eve, but there was nobody there because our plan had been postponed. So the only time I'd been in Belfast, apart from being in jail, was as an altar boy going to Bellevue Zoo. So I ran down the road looking for Adela Street, and eventually I found myself around there somewhere, and eventually I got across the border about a week later after being on the run. So that's the story. That's where I got out. And I've Dan Moore, who's here many years later. I met him in Dublin. He said, "You always said you go out the front gate." Well, I did, but I went out the ornamental gate. There's my story. There'll be a collection now later on when you leave.
Okay, folks.
They would, and then in the summertime we went out, and there were 7 days in the week, so 3 days of 1 week we were out in the football yard.
Yeah.
And you could play
That was
football.
just
It's a rough old stone yard. And then the other place then was a garden in which we walked around, and you could chat and learn Irish or do your studies or whatever you wanted
That's
to
where
do.
we did the
And
morning
then-
exercise.
That's the same. The morning
Yeah.
exercise was done there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I allowed you a wage that used to buy the boys was it 9 of tobacco.
Yeah. Did
No,
anybody?
he's bought
You smoke?
sweets.
Did you smoke, Jim?
I smoked and these
Aye.
boys bought sweets.
That's right. Yeah.
You started off
Shot
at 1 and
players.
6 a week, wasn't that?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think
one and
it was up to 3 shillings and 4pence or something like that.
That went up then,
Oh,
as you
yeah.
got you served more
You
time.
done more time.
As
Aye,
your
you got a
sentence
pay
went
raise.
on, you
I
got
never
that,
got
but
paid. I left all my money behind me. I never got paid. I never got the bloody
There
paid.
was a lot of interest now.
I
if you
wonder
could
could I
get it.
sue? I wonder could I sue them now for it?
Oh, yeah,
Tom Mitchell
was
and
a
Damon
command
Boyce,
officer,
yeah.
and Damon Boyce.
There were Omer Raiders were in before us. They
Aye,
came.
they were the
They were
command
from Dublin and
officers,
from
like.
Cork, and they had elected Tom Mitchell as the officer commanding. So even though we worked and we acted, we operated as prisoners, if you like. Any requests went through the command structure of any big nature.
Aye, if you wanted something wrong with the food of that, you didn't go to we called them the screws. You went to Tom Mitchell as a commanding officer. He dealt with it. Like.
And while I was there, Tom Mitchell was the only. Oh no, sorry, it was two. When Sean Garland came in, he became the OC.
OC.
Yeah.
The most terrifying time I reckon the days in there anyway is when the Malin and Talbot come on. They were sentenced
Yes.
to death,
That's right.
and they started down up the cell at the end under for at the gallows. But they were reprieved, like, but it was tense time. Like.
But it was a terrible time because
It was a tense time,
they were
like,
out.
and-
They were out. If they'd been found guilty, they would have been executed.
Lord Justice McDermott one day.
That's right.
He, before he sentenced us, he said that by the powers invested in me, I can sentence you to whipping or to hanging. He told
Yes,
us.
That's right.
But I think in your case, a fairly lenient sentence will do in any percent. Started off as 10 years, 8 years,
Thanks
6 years.
Thanks very much.
Very lenient sentence.
And Phil McStravick and they and I had the arms folded and I'll judge sentence and we kept doing this here.
Yeah,
We'll meet again.
that is Judge Kern.
We'll
who's doing
meet
that too.
again, you bastards.
Yeah.
That's what he
So
cared
the
about.
command structure was there despite the fact that we were acting as ordinary prisoners to many in many other ways, but they were there and they got I remember they got Misha Era. They negotiated getting in
I
Misha
got to
Era,
follow my share.
which had just been released, and we got that in, and we also got a few little things like that. But there weren't much things given to us really at the end of the day.
There was a concert then at Christmas, and also you got, on Christmas Day, you got 2 sausages, Christmas morning. That was, we counted how long we had to do. If you had 4 years to do, you got 8 sausages. 2 sausages every Christmas. So
And do you remember the sausages
you only
being
needed
sour?
2 more. You only needed 4 more sausages, or 2 more sausages, or whatever.
And there weren't beef sausages.
You'd be released.
As John Robin used to say, they're made out of sawdust.
Yeah. But you're good to remember the concert because the concert was very good. The Northern Ireland Light Orchestra came in. Frank Carson came in.
Aye.
Frank was good.
And they used to bring in,
Yeah.
an odd play to you.
Yeah, and then the Freddie Gilroy, remember he came in as
Gilroy,
well.
Was it Bell?
Boxer.
Yeah, and so did Johnny Caldwell. Johnny's
John
dead now.
Caldwell, Johnny Caldwell.
They were Olympic winners of in the boxing. Timothy O'Regan came from the Pash. He's dead now as well, and he came. And what I remember about
He
him.
gave his general absolution, he called
That's
it.
right. And I don't
you didn't
remember.
have to go to
Do
confession.
you remember going to confession into him, and he used to, but maybe it's only my sins, but he used to put his hands over his ears, and he'd look at us and he'd say 3 Hail Marys. Say 3 Hail Marys. Did you remember putting his hands over his ears?
I don't remember that.
Well,
I can't remember him
I'm
doing
sorry I
that.
told that story now.
Remember the first day.
Maybe you had too much to tell.
I can't remember going to confession at all.
Probably the tale you had to tell.
No. So, but religion, I have to. This is very interesting. I'm speaking for myself. The lads can speak for themselves. Religion to me was important. I would have said my rosary every night. I would have said my prayers every morning. Despite the fact that we were not being allowed confession, we thought, well, the priest. We had read enough to know that the priest didn't own the church. The church belonged to us. We didn't give any, and we knew that the people in the Civil War had been denied the sacraments and all of that. So we didn't pay, while we were upset about it, we didn't let it get it between us and our religion. And when I was there, before I left, I was 17 when I was jailed. I had been in the Legion of Mary. I was an altar boy. I knew all the priests. And while I was there, I only say this not in any recrimination thing, but when I was there, no priest from my parish in Noma ever came to see me.
No.
And,
No,
and
nor
I
me
don't know
either.
even if they inquired about me.
Nor me
I have
either.
to say a Christian brother did come. Brother Murphy came. And he was a Wexford man, and obviously his heart was in the right place. And he
Well,
came to see me. It was made very difficult for him when he was
It
in
was
there.
hard to get visits anyway, for we weren't
Yeah.
allowed many visits and weren't allowed many letters either.
You had to make your own bit of fun, such as it was. They'd, maybe they used to play handball up against the wall of the
That
block.
Mhm.
That was
And,
another thing. Donny and I were nearly all Ireland champions at the handball.
That's right. That's
The
right.
ball
Only
used to
for a
go,
few-
used to get tangled up on the bars of the window.
You remember that?
A few dodgy decisions, or
Yes, yes.
was the final. Or would have been Albert Haynes was imprisoned in Crumlin Road just before that. We were visiting my mother and a few of the rest, and all were visiting the house, and we were discussing Haynes. And, well, I said, well, one thing for sure, he won't escape from Crumlin Road.
He had
No.
escaped several times from
I
England.
escaped from England, all the prisons around and all the rest of it. And I said, well, I'll not escape from Crumlin Road, for no one will ever escape from Crumlin Road. And just for that, the news came on. There's been an escape from Crumlin Road, Daniel Donnelly. That's missing in Crumlin Road.
I mean, Haynes is a lockpicker, do you mean? And I hear the story about him after he was released out of prison at that time, that he got a job with Yale Locks in England, a fantastic job. He supplied to the van.
As a consultant.
They sent, the banks that couldn't, the safe couldn't get open. He went and opened it. He could open any safe. And he stuck it for about 6 months till he emptied the safe in a couple of post offices.
But you were
They
probably.
back in jail in England
But
again.
Jim, going back to after the escape, you were probably buoyed up by the good news and all, but the authorities themselves, they were very strict. They did away with privileges and all.
They did,
Didn't let you-
everything was stopped. We're
Yes,
locked
yes,
up.
yeah, yeah.
Locked up.
Because I was told off a few
But
people.
nobody seemed to care. Like. But the war took it bad now. They weren't the best humour. But mind we Brian Faulkner come round doing inspections.
He was the Minister for Home Affairs.
He's the Minister of Home Affairs. He is in the next day. Oh, Jesus, such a